Hey everyone, this is Benny from Fluent in 3 Months, and I am talking to you today from Singapore. And I've invited Jade to tell me a little bit about Singlish. So what is Singlish?
I would say Singlish is something like a pidgin language that mixes a lot of the local languages, like some Chinese dialects, Cantonese, Teochew, Hokkien, as well as Malay, and a little bit of Tamil, Hindi, whatever you have here. And of course, Singlish is short for Singaporean English, and it has its basis in English. I would say.
Okay, and how is it viewed by locals? Because I know that in some situations people may frown upon using it, even though it's a genuine language, like in its own right, used by people. So what's the kind of reception that it gets from different kinds of people?
I would say that Singlish is not exactly a kind of formalized language. So it's not the kind of language you will want to use in a business setting, in a professional situation, but it's something that we definitely use, when we're speaking with friends, in an informal situation where we're buying something in the market. That's the kind of language we'll use to avoid sounding really posh or, like we say, atas, which means kind of elitist. Like if you really speak very perfect, very good English in some situation that don't warrant for it, that some situations that don't require that, you will seem really pretentious. So Singlish is a way to actually get down to the local level, like get down to earth, really relate and bond with the locals, I would say.
Okay. And if someone like myself were moving to Singapore, would it be strange for me to try to speak Singlish, or would people just adjust for my benefit, or would it be more respectful for me to try to use the slang and so on? Sure.
I would say that Singaporeans would find it amusing when foreigners try to speak Singlish. They won't take offense unless you make fun of it.
Sure.
But we don't really need that, because most Singaporeans, or I would say all Singaporeans, we are formally educated in English. So we would have no problems unless you have this really heavy accent. I don't know, like some of us do have problems with the Australian accents, or some of the more obscure British accents, like Cheryl Cole.
Yeah.
So unless you have a very heavy accent, most Singaporeans would understand English pretty well. So you don't really have to adjust, except maybe for the older generation or some of the people that are slightly less educated. You might have to go a little bit slow, but some people might take offense if you go very Singlish on them on purpose. Like, you mean I can't speak real English now? You have to, So it really depends. Just go normal English, like standard English first, and if you see, just adjust accordingly if you have to, but there's really no need for that.
Okay.
There's no need for that.
All right. And now, in terms of the language itself, I just was reading up a little bit about it, and I found it very, very interesting that there's, like you said, the influences from Malay and Hokkien and other languages. And from what I've learned from Mandarin, I know Mandarin didn't directly influence any part of it, but because other Chinese dialects have influenced it, there's a little bit of familiarity I'm starting to see, like word formations and you can maybe elaborate on this. But for instance, if you wanted to ask a yes or no question,
Yes.
How does that work?
How does that work? I mean, for me, being born and bred in Singapore, it comes really natural to me. I don't think about it the way you do, like you analyze it word for word.
Of course,
or, by the structure. For me, it just comes like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think you add a little bit of, you use very much Chinese influence grammar structure, and you add English words and other words in it to make it work. But let me give an example. Like you add meh if you are asking a question. And you give a positive sentence and you add meh, and it becomes a question.
Right.
Like,
and that would be similar to the Mandarin ma.
Ma, or actually meh, the exact sound comes from, I would say, Cantonese.
Yes, right.
Yes. So if you're familiar coming from Hong Kong or some places that speak Cantonese, if you want to ask someone, can you can you really do that? You can do that, meh?
Uh-huh.
So you add you can do that, which is a positive statement,
Right.
and may at the end. And it actually, you also express a little bit of disbelief, or there's these nuances that you can get just by adding the may. Because when you say you can do that, do you think you can do that, or are you sure you can do that? But with that may, you even add the idea of the uncertainty.
Right.
The idea of, are you sure you can do that?
Yeah.
But you just say you can do that, meh, with that look on your face, and you just get that.
Yeah.
And somebody doesn't think that somebody thinks you can't do that. It's actually a very colorful and vibrant language, in the sense that it's very economized. It's very short,
Yeah.
and yet just by the tone and the nuances, you can get a lot of the emotions and
Any words that are loan words, would you keep the tones in them?
In fact, I would say that Singlish is a rather monotonous language,
Okay.
because it doesn't respect it doesn't respect the English intonation.
Right.
In the sense that because you bring in so many different languages, you just go as
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it monotonous. It's different emphasis. So English is a stress emphasized language.
Yes.
So when I'm speaking in English, I emphasize certain parts of the sentence. But from
Yes.
what I've seen, Singlish is a syllable emphasizing language. So you actually will pronounce each syllable clearly. And that
so it would be rather choppy.
Yes.
It sounds choppy to an English speaker, I would say. So it can sound rather monotonous.
yeah.
But if you come from our angle, we would say, it's really natural. to
Yeah,
say
of
that.
course.
It's really colorful. Some people, when you hear it. Some people ask me one day, are you speaking some language from India? I'm like, no. But it does sound like, it's really animated.
Yeah, definitely.
And very exotic. It sounds really exotic. So I don't know.
It's impossible to summarize the language in like 5 minutes, but if you glance online, there's so many things, so many different words that are used differently, like action. That's
Don't be so action-lay.
okay.
Like if you're someone who's really if you're someone who really likes to show off for the sake of showing off,
Right.
like there's no meaning or no use for it, you're being action, like
Yeah.
someone who overacts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another one I saw was arrow.
To let's say in a professional situation, or even in a social situation where someone is required to do an unpleasant task, usually, and nobody wants to do it. So usually you will get arrowed to do it. Basically, someone would volunteer your services. You would say that.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of it kind of means that you got shot by an arrow, which nobody likes.
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly.
likes that. Yeah.
So that's the thing is to get accustomed to the language, you would have to see how all of these different words are used in a unique way. And like you say, it's very colorful. It gives it this unique quality,
Yes.
And it is a pity that it's frowned upon by like institutions have this policy like speak proper English or something like.
Yes.
And how do people feel about that when it's their language and it's how they're comfortable speaking? What's the reaction to someone saying, you're not speaking proper? Like, because it's like I see it as two different entities. You can code switch between speaking standard English for work purposes and then speaking Singlish with your friends. How do people look on that?
I like the way you brought up this. I like the way you brought up this term, code switching. It's very important in Singapore's context. So basically, in official situations, it's definitely frowned upon, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't want to speak Singlish unless you can't help it. Some people really can't help it. So it's very important in official situations to be able to speak good English. But I would say with friends and family, in casual situations, we definitely speak Singlish. In fact, straight away, most of us, would go Singlish. It's just the going back part to professional, good English that may be an issue for some people, because not everyone is so, flexible in that sense.
Right.
And some people tend to think of Singlish as good English, because sometimes the line is really fine. There's really gangster Singlish, and then there's, slight Singlish. it's a spectrum, I would say.
course.
It's not like a Singlish English. Singlish is here, and then you have, then English. So some people are like kind of in the middle, and it's very difficult for you to code switch when you're. It's very difficult for you to code switch when you're right in the middle.
Yeah.
So you tend to bring in some words, and it just flows over. You don't really come back to the right English, and that can become a problem because some people find that you don't. Some people feel that you don't sound educated when you go Singlish all the time. So that said, a lot of educated people speak Singlish.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, I mean it has nothing to do with social stature or where you come from. It's very much in our hearts.
Yeah.
Singlish. Yeah, it's very important to know when to use Singlish and when to use English, and it's not actually correct to say good English because you kind of imply that Singlish is bad English,
Right.
which is totally not true.
Yes.
Yeah. So speak good English. We have this thing called Speak Good English campaign, which kind of imply that some people here are speaking bad English, but there's a difference between bad English, like you don't know your grammar, your expressions, and speaking Singlish. So that dichotomy really needs to be well explained,
Yeah.
and someone needs to stand out there. Someone Singaporean, hopefully, needs to stand out there and say, hey, we should give Singlish the respect it deserves, and then do something about people who don't speak the right kind of English.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say
Excellent.
that.
Yeah, so I am here for several days, and I'm actually looking forward to hearing more Singlish because I was here a few years ago, and just in hearing it, it's this very interesting collection, like Singapore is itself. It's this mixture of cultures, mixture of languages. All of the notices that you see are in 4 languages.
Yes.
So, I feel like Singlish is part of, like you said, it's the heart of Singaporeans. So I do highly recommend people try to show a little bit of interest in the place that they're visiting. I mean, you will always be understood if you were to speak standard English, but it's very different. But I actually really appreciate it when people come to Ireland and they start using Irish English. It's a different situation because we're talking about a dialect versus pidgin language or a Creole language, but it's still it shows me that they're not that English is not just for communicating, that they're actually trying to learn the language to connect with people.
Yes.
And if I were to stay here longer, I would definitely be diving so much more into it, and I would try to show respect, and I wouldn't be doing it to make fun. I would be doing it to show people that I actually care about having them speak naturally to me, and that's what language is all about at the end of the day.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much for the very interesting discussion. Really appreciate it, Jade.
Thank you, Benny.
All right, take care, everybody.